Good afternoon. Welcome to the CannaList. I am your host, Patrick Doherty, and we are here today with Henning von Koss. Sir, how are you?
Hi, Patrick. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good. Since I'm probably going to mispronounce the name of the company, could you pronounce it for us?
It's PharmaCielo.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna mispronounce that, so I figured I would let you do that. So, sort of to begin with, you have a very interesting background, which is not necessarily cannabis centric, but if you could give us a little bit of an intro about yourself and sort of your diverse background.
Great. So, I'm an executive by career. I made my career, 23 years of this career at Bayer, the big health and chemical conglomerate from Germany. I worked the last 10 years at Bayer with the health sector, so Bayer Healthcare, pharma, OTCs, diagnostic products, all those line of products. Of those 23 years, I was 16 years abroad, part of them in Colombia. That's also why I got connected later on to PharmaCielo, and then to PharmaCielo to Cannabis. Then when I left Bayer, I decided to dedicate this was 14 years ago, to family-owned business, what we call owner business, people going in corporate governments, trying to create succession or have a turnaround. They are struggling with a financial or with an operational approach. So I always entered the kind of the first executive outside of the family that would run the business and try to settle things down or redirect the business. So, and I did that in various segments. So I started with pharma, and then I did healthcare. So health plans in Brazil are very much in the hand of doctors and families. So I was then the first executive. I did, and you say it, I can have tires, rubber, meat slaughter, women's shoes. So it's not so much about the segment, but about the situation always of the company. So the company, when it is about to grow into a next stage, move into an improvement or change a kind of a direction, that's where I have specialized myself on working at. So that's what I have been doing till 2019. In 2017, I've been invited to join the board of PharmaCielo, basically because when PharmaCielo was formed, it was very important that the mindset of the founders was, let me bring in, as we were talking before, actually the market was information, all the laws were being set, the dynamics of the market are still to be set, and they were being set back then. And we then said, oh, let's put in the board people that have relationship to businesses and to challenges that the cannabis space will have in the future. So we looked then, our former chairman was a former Philip Morris, because the tobacco industry, the stigma, the regulations, the limitations. Then we had a cutting flower entrepreneur, because the cannabis growing, we will talk about that, growing clonation is very similar to cutting flowers. So what were the challenges there? Contract growers and so on. We had a doctor that was looking at what was the mindset of the doctors and how would they accept it. And they were looking for a pharma guy that knew Colombia. So, well, I checked the box. I was there in Colombia. I was with pharma. I was with Bayer. So they wanted to know, what will pharma demand? What will be the demand of the big pharmaceuticals once they jump in that segment? Sorry. So that's what I've been. I've joined them.
So you started as a board member, correct?
As a board member in 2017.
And how did you transition from board member to?
I think very much related to, similar to my career, which is we've reached, as the board of a starting company, you participate very much together with the executives. You are very close together designing a business. Then suddenly I was the one speaking Spanish and the board. And living in Colombia, so I was often down there at the operations, helping, supporting, understanding. And in 2019, by the end of 2019, when we have finished the basic fundamentals of the company, people asked me, well, go down there, support the CEO to bring it to a new direction, which is, I think we missed that in the beginning, but to focus the company on commercialization. Where are you going to focus? What are the markets that we were going to go? Because this was a little bit my area. So I helped him just as the board member, and then suddenly an invitation came to be the president to help him formally, exactly, because when you are a board member coming out from an executive position, and that's very personal now, the drive of an executive is still there. The board, you have to hold yourself back and try not to.
Yeah, you're supposed to be an advisor, not do the work, right?
Yeah, but it's tough when you have been an executive for so long. So the board said, look, you have more of the power to be an executive than to be only a board member. So why don't we change a little bit that, and you go in as a president, because we need that support. It was easier, you know the market, you know the people. I did that in March. We finished the facilities. And then in December, when everything was ready and we wanted to make, again, the turnaround to let's refocus, let's now focus on the commercial part and strengthening that, I got the proposal to be the CEO and accepted it. So it was a change of moments in the company.
And what has been sort of, you have the executive experience, business is business, you know how to do this. What have you found to be unique about the cannabis space that you hadn't expected?
Oh, that's a good question. I'll try to answer it in a simple way. I would have expected to have and you mentioned it already, a more structured ecosystem, but there are too many gaps in that ecosystem. Yeah. So it's not a real stable functioning market. It's a market information. And you have big gaps, and I will use your wording, you have big gaps between one step and the other. So you have a lot of islands of solutions, let's call it that way. Someone that is working on the B2C, someone that is making the cultivation, some of them try to be from seed to sale. So even the concepts have a lot of gaps. So that's what I found, where I said, well, we have to create the concept, which is, one thing is when you are an executive, as you said, you operate, you are a pilot of a big plane that is flying, but everything is set. When you are coming into you are building the plane and you still don't know if the whole environment is working well. So you have to work on your plane, on your company, and on the environment. The ecosystem has to be built and you are part of that. So I think this was the basic, this is the largest challenge that we have. So things are not ready. Look, where you mentioned, and we can divide it in various on the regulation part. Go and try to make business in the US. So you make a state business, you don't make a federal business. And everything from supporting functions of whatever, supply chain, banking, are very much influenced by the decision of the federal, or whatever federal decision is taken in the state. So as long as that's not clear, banking doesn't work completely as we would be used to.
Right.
So just as an example. So what we have is, I think, summarizing, too many gaps that we have to fill beyond just making our business work. So you have to take care of your company and you have to guarantee that the system is working.
So when you look at some of the markets that are a little more mature that have been around, such as Canada and parts of the US, are these good roadmaps for you, or are they lessons of what not to do?
It's always like that on both. Good roadmaps of what to do and what not to do. But for sure, I think Canada, and here's perhaps a differentiation. I want to talk about two topics here, differentiation. One thing is the Canadian market, yes, is mature, but it is not the pure market. It's a combo. It's, well, 70% of the business are flowers. It's the adult market. The extract market where we are acting is a little bit not that big, still starting, still growing. The global positioning, delivering outside of the countries, is not something that Canada has focused very much. They were more focused on their own market, and they closed their borders. So it's a market to look at from people's behavior, from penetration, and from the benefits, and what are the segments that cannabis can grow. But from the business perspective, it's a very it's a very closed market. We don't know exactly the dynamics of the markets because you can't have access to it. So the learning here is perhaps more related to the product, to cannabis, and to the use and the penetration capacity, and which are the segments that they will go, but less from the business, how to do business. The same in the US, it's a good learning to see that you don't have a US market, you have state by state market. And you have also, there you learn the challenges of the regulators, the challenges of having a product, going through, having the DEA approving a product. You still don't have standards because FDA as a federal can't jump in and set a standard, but when they set, what will happen to the market? So I think the learning there is really to see size of businesses, business paths, but the US is still, it's very unclear for me how much I can learn from there because of this state-by-state approach. And very much, again, and I think here too, very much business to consumer, or the other side, the big distributor. I don't understand so much I didn't find in the US so much a big producer or cultivator like we have positioned ourselves, where we could compare or say, no, let's take a look how they work and how they approach, because it's always a very state-oriented solution. So what we are doing is looking at those markets and seeing how it evolves to participate, but not so much to learn from it in the sense of what is similar to my business that I will have to adapt myself. And as we are focusing in Europe, at least in the beginning, because of this pharmaceutical approach and not so much the adult market, Europe is then what we are trying to look at, what is happening there, how is it behaving. Europe perhaps is for me a little bit more the structured approach of laws, regulation, how will it work, why will it work, what will be possible, what we'll have, what are the standards, which are things that speak to my nature and the concept that we have for PharmaCielo of higher standards, different quality, standardization of product, demands not opportunistic approaches, a little bit more of a structured long-term approach. That's where I look at Europe as.
I would think when you look at Europe, though, that there's a lot of people currently looking at Europe, particularly looking at Germany as a sizable market and opportunity. So do you find this to be a crowded space, or do you find it wide open?
I think if you look at what the market has been able to deliver, one would say that is a highly crowded space. If you look what the market will be, it is still wide open. I think it's a crowded space, everyone fighting for what is available. So then it's crowded, whatever opportunity is happening. But if you look at the market expansion and the growth that it may happen and will happen in the different countries and different segments, then it's wide open.
And are you initially focusing on Germany, or where are you initially focusing in Europe?
Yeah, we looked in Europe, and I will answer it with two things, the countries and why we went there. So we are looking at Germany, Switzerland, Poland, the UK, especially in Europe. And then we have in our wave, because we work in waves, we have resources limitations, so we have to go wherever it can do a good job. We focus a little on Australia, and of course we look at the US for opportunity businesses. But yes, these are the 4 countries that we go more in, and we have our JV in Italy. So these are the 5 countries that we're moving on. And we have chosen then, not by their size, because otherwise I would never take Switzerland, but more, we created internally an attractiveness index, which considers acceptance of the population, wealth of the population to be able to absorb cannabis product and higher level cannabis product, activities of the industry in searching and researching new cannabis formulations and differentiators, reimbursement processes, and so on. So regulation, and by that attractiveness, the most attractive country from our internal index is Switzerland. And Brazil, which is a huge country, is among the lowest because of religiosity, missing wealth. So the majority of population is poor. Cannabis won't have an access for that. It's not a topic. So we have understood that cannabis has a place in a more mature market and not necessarily in every market.
I know that a lot of companies that are going into Europe typically look at Germany because the standards in Germany are so high that the belief is that if you get it approved in Germany, then you can very likely take that and it will be accepted in other locations throughout Europe. I would think Switzerland would be in a similar situation, right? That if you meet the German standards, you're going to meet the other standards for most of the other countries. There'll be some local legislation.
Yeah, from the product perspective, you're right. From the product perspective, you will have for sure the German standards. If you met them, you met all the. But there are more things than just the product perspective. So the acceptance, the mentality of people of accepting product. We found out there was a research back in 2019 about how much would people accept cannabis as a medicinal, as a medicinal product. So even that varies very strong, and the Germans are not the standard for that, nor are the Italians. So I think from the perspective of products demands and safety and use and effectiveness, yes, German will probably set the standard. But from the mentality of using and accepting and implementing it in the day-to-day, German will not necessarily be there. Each market will have a different dynamic, in my opinion.
And what are the advantages of being in Colombia?
Yeah, when we went to Colombia, of course, we call it the big impact. So we compared to what was available on that time. And well, take two examples, California or in Canada. So cannabis is a flower. It demands two main things that these two countries don't, or choose one state and one country, don't have combined. So sun. So California has sun, but has no water, but Canada has water and no sun. And water, because you're growing a plant and you have to do it. So these were the main two aspects to say socially, environmental impact. Probably Colombia is the best place because you have abundance of sun and abundance of water. So that was the first thing. People were looking at that. And then we looked, okay, what else do you need? We need to experience, because we believe that you have to have uniformity on the product already on the planning side when you cultivate. It's not just when you extract. It's not when you take just an isolate. So we believe that Colombia has a very strong available knowledge and workforce knowledge when it comes to cloning and propagating flowers. They are the second largest exporter in the world for flower production, for cutting flowers. And there is a lot of knowledge of handling so that you can make a flower reach whatever you're sitting now in Spain, and the flower that you see at the supermarket and you buy and it has to last 7 days, it comes here from Colombia. So how do you guarantee that the cultivation, harvesting, timing, and everything reaches that? So that was another aspect in Colombia, the available knowledge on handling with flowers or with cultivation, with propagation. So these were the main three aspects. And we had a third one, which was the social impact that we would have in Colombia itself, because Colombia was coming out of the guerrilla wars, and you had a lot of resocialization. So people that were providing products for the drug market, for the drug cartel, they have their land, they need to live. So you either acquire their land or you bring them in to produce products with you. So the Colombian law has been designed to have a social impact, including smaller farmers in your value chain. So this was a social impact. So it's always an impact question or answer. If I did it right, it's 4 impacts. And
so just to clarify, you're doing outdoor grows or indoor grows, or a combination?
Outdoor growth. It's an outdoor growth.
Okay.
People will look and see it's covered. I don't know if you saw our
Yeah, I
video.
looked at the website. That's why I was asking, because I saw the cover.
Yeah, it is just covered because as we have too much sun, and if you need to have it covered to avoid the sun sometimes, because you need the shadow to avoid it to flourish. Otherwise, it will grow like crazy.
Yeah, like a weed, right?
And sometimes the heavy rain to avoid the damage to the plant itself. But it's not to create a climate. You don't create the climatic conditions to have it warm or whatever. No, it's just to avoid this extreme situation.
You're using the natural light versus artificial lights and stuff.
Yeah, we do sometimes use artificial light if we want to extend the flourishing through the night.
Okay.
Because of a process. But in general, we don't use artificial light. We use the sunlight and the water abundance, which is over there.
And why did you choose a B2B focus versus trying to pursue a B2C market?
Because I think the B2C market is still to be defined. It's still, what is the right B2C market? And perhaps because we were overcrowded on that, everything going towards the dilutions, towards the gels, and towards the dispensaries. And then suddenly you have other, what is it? Let's put it up, so let me put it the other way. What is the consumer, the B2C product that you want to do? Because it's difficult to choose. So we decided to look at it and say, still either overcrowded or still not set. It's too early, but one thing they will have in common, all of them, they will need input material and quality input material. So let's be the provider of this quality product while the B2C market is being formed, is creating their demand. Because if we go to B2C, we will take, of course, we are customer centric to understand where he's moving, but the B2C is very limited to what is available on technologies to offer a different product. I'll try to explain myself, a little bit complicated, even in my mind to explain, but the isolate. What was the origin of the isolate? The CBD isolate is a kind of a mixture between the way that has been found to make some product out of a hemp, which is low in any kind of hemp is not so rich in in the cannabinoid composition. It's very limited, and he also a kind of a safety for the consumer to know, or for the regulator to say there is no THC in here. I took out all the psychoactivity, but it's a limited product. It can do only one thing. Where is the entourage effect? Where is the rest? But until now, everyone was going isolate, 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 because that's what is being bought. Mm-hmm. What we are trying to do is we believe that once you have the availability and the access to a more complex product, new consumer markets will evolve. Be it the pharmaceutical market can't do anything with CBD isolate. Well, they do work with it, and that's why sometimes people come with just synthetic questions, but CBD isolate has his limitation. And what we are saying is, look, a CBD distillate broad spectrum without THC has all the attributes from CBD and more, because it brings the entourage effect coming out from the combination of the different cannabinoids in the plant without having the psychoactivity. So suddenly a lot of light bulbs come up. Oh, this is possible. This is nice. So let's move into a new market. So we believe, your question is, why didn't we go to B2C? Because first of all, it was limited and crowded. And secondly, because we believe that it's still not defined what is the right way to have a consumer product. So we would be easier and more effective by offering a variety of products, formulations that could evolve to better B2C consumers. So we would be a broader set. That's a little bit.
And then I think this gets into this idea that the importance of the unified API. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit for us? Because when I think of APIs, I think of software, so I was confused reading that.
Oh yeah, the APIs and the connection between.
Yeah, so I was like, what are APIs doing in this? Can you explain to us why, as a software person, I was confused? Actually, explain what you mean by APIs versus what most of us think of.
API is the, yeah, thank you. It's good. I never thought about the software API side, but yes, you're right. It is confusing. APIs is the acronym for active pharmaceutical ingredient. So in some countries, due to the order of the letters, it changes. But in Brazil, it's IFA. But it's API, it's active pharmaceutical ingredient. And this is actually the base for any kind of product that will be used in the wellness, health, and medicinal production of a final product. So what people look at, like for example, I don't know, take a traditional antibiotic, a penicillin. Penicillin, the salt of penicillin is the API. And what you have to guarantee if you enter that market with an API is that your API is uniform, because the pharmaceutical industry will make their studies or will make their claims or will make their analysis based on always having the same product and be offering the same product with the right dosage, very safety oriented, say we have to limit the dosage, we have to guarantee that the product is clean, we have to guarantee that it has no contamination with other products, that it has everything that it says it has, and that it always has the same. So this continuity is, and this uniformity is the basic aspect from any pharmaceutical and wellness industry. So that you can, as a consumer, with an ease of mind, take a product and know that you're always taking the same product all the time.
So you're doing substantial testing to verify that?
We do a lot of, we started even before, because a normal API is a synthetic API synthesized in a chemical process. So you have it pretty much controlled.
Control, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but when you come with a flower, so you come a living element here in that you need to guarantee that this profile is always the same. So that's where we do a lot of testing and research to guarantee that our flower, before it's becoming an extract, that it has a very stable chemical profile. And how do we do that? So then we have to go a little bit, not for the software, but now for the botanics, is I have to guarantee that the mother plant, which produces the clones, which will be then propagated, which will then generate the final flower, that the mother plant is always the same. But mother plants age, the clones get weaker. So we have stepped before and said, okay, let's take the mother plant, let's make something called tissue culture. So you don't work with the seeds, you work with the tissue and you manipulate it so you keep it immortal. So you take away those aging aspects and you always keep a fresh tissue. You clone it in vitro, so you always have the best mother plant. And this mother plant does then its job to produce the clones and always the stability. So by that, we from mother plant, not even from seed, from mother plant to formulation, we guarantee a stability of the chemical profile. And then, of course, once it has extracted, you have to have good manufacturing practices, you have to comply with that, you have to guarantee no contamination of the process. Then it goes into the normal standard process, standard procedures. But we do that even before starting with the mother plant. And you would say no one else does that? They do it at because that's probably the next thing. They do it at lab. They do it at lab.
Yeah.
But they don't do it at scale. So at scale, it's very difficult to do, because we are talking about, I have to have mother plants that produce enough clones to cover, I don't know, 20 hectares, 30 hectares. So you have to have that size of business, and we can now, to have 20 hectares, you need around 2 hectares of mother plants. So we have the in vitro replication of mother plants at scale that would allow us to fulfill our demand generated by production. And others have the labs.
My question actually was a different question, was going to be that with the outdoor grows, how do you control external contaminants?
Yeah, first of all, we don't use, first of all, taking away all those traditional pesticides, insecticides, they try to take that away. That's the advantage also of Colombia, because as we are in a height about, I may be wrong here now, 1,200 meters, the incidence of insects, and what you may more have, you have to control fungus more than you have to control insects. But insects are more vectors of bad things between fungus. But we have also the control, and I'm not the technicians here, but we have the organical control, try to avoid any kind of external chemical products into the plant when we are planning. We did a lot of, and it's a good question that you remembered me, before we started harvesting, we had a 2-year cleanup of the soil. So you plant, you let it take out whatever is bad, you clean it, you take the earth, you redo it. I'm not the expert here, but it takes about 1 to 2 years. So did you clean up the soil, which was in the past being used with more pesticides and so on. So we avoided from that chemical approach with external product. The other thing that we also do, as we separate because one of the things people say is the contamination between different flowers. So there is a system of separation of flowers where we plant them. We only have one cultivar for CBD, so we don't have a variety of different flowers coming in, contaminating the others. So there's a lot of controls when you start the business, and what do you use, how do you apply it, and how do you control whatever external factors. So yes, we can go even in more detail, tell you, I'm not the expert, but I can bring the expert to say, that's what we do in that area, in that area, in that area. But mainly it's that where we worked on. Yeah,
I mean, that sort of came up from, what we've seen in the US, especially around GMOs, where, there's things are just blown in the wind, and, and then inevitably will then affect other crops, and cross-pollinate and those types of problems, stuff like that. And so, are you currently shipping product?
Yeah, we are. As we finished the facility last year, we are shipping products mainly to isolates and distillates, and we are doing some shipping of products, different formulations. Like, for example, we are going to ship THC, probably for research purposes, product development. Commercially, we are shipping more isolate and distillate, mainly to the UK. We had something to Germany, to Czech Republic. So that's where we are shipping product now. We have recurring orders from the UK. Our largest client today is one client in the UK. We had some late shipments that you probably saw from our news to Canada, which was for product development, not for commercial purposes. Here will come the challenge from the regulator for Health Canada to really allow the entrance of products for commercial purposes. This is outside of our control, but we believe that this will evolve positively. We had shipped last year to the US, to some specific clients in Colorado, also the isolate. So yes, we are shipping product, and this shipment and the demand of the product is growing because we now reach this GMP standards, and perhaps here I take just the space. Not the certification, but the certification depends on the authority coming in and certifying, and no one is traveling. Agendas for authorities to come is very difficult, but we are producing compliant with GMP. So this allowed us to have access to a lot of markets that were looking to our product, seeing the difference when they use it, when they changing their suppliers. So we are moving on. We are gaining space in this cannabis markets where we are active.
And do you believe that do you have sort of a permanent advantage in the Colombian environment, or do you think that other emerging areas that have sun and water will begin to populate, and you'll start to see pockets around these types of locations?
Well, there are, if you mean geographically.
Like,
yes.
I've heard buzz around Africa. I've heard stuff, growing in Portugal. We're seeing stuff growing in the Canary Islands. So.
Oh, you mean that way? Because we have some competitors in Colombia itself. So because Colombia was the big opportunity outside of Canada and the US to grow. Yeah. I believe that many people used Portugal or Malta as a kind of a a way to have the flower being GMP standardized to enter the European Union. I don't know if there is a real advantage to have a product in Portugal. Africa, I think neither regulators nor the mentality of people will allow them to evolve that fast, I believe. It's very limited. It's politically very difficult to get something through there. Technologically, probably yes, from whether they have it, but from their, if you take the combination of things, I think you don't have many countries that are feasible to do things. Yeah, Ecuador would be something. People look at far away, but go to Ecuador. Ecuador is another big flower producer.
Yeah.
But if we take the flower business as an example, you don't have so many growing other business for export purposes outside of Colombia and Ecuador. So all these countries that you mentioned, you don't have Portugal producing flowers like to be a big exporter. Africa, also not. You may, the opposite side of the globe sometimes happens, like Thailand, all these areas. But there we will again face this missing element of mentality, religiosity. How do they treat handling this product is not that easy in their mind.
Yeah.
It's not like planting something. It's something which is very stigmatic. So it has space, making the answer short probably, which is already too long. It has space, but it doesn't have the whole conditions if you consider everything else beyond the product.
And despite all the progress that we've made with legalized product and developing these types of products, we're still seeing a thriving black market. Many people will attribute this to taxation, regulations. Will there always be a black market, or will we finally reach a tipping point where the commercial stuff is acceptable and reasonably priced and things like that?
Yeah, I think we have to differentiate here. CBD, I think that the black market will die soon if there is a black market for CBD as such. When it goes to the psychoactive part, it is very much related to how do we handle this? What is the use of the product? There will always be a black market, in my opinion, for the adult use concept in some countries, which would in the majority of the countries go. The black market for those markets where we operate, pharmaceutical wellness and health, they won't have too much space in there. Because again, the standards, the black market as such offers the flower for the burning purpose of the flower. But that flower is not stable enough and doesn't offer the standards that the others, these new markets that are evolving, demand. So they don't have a space. You won't be able to have, even if you would be investing a lot, it's not part of the mentality to have really a product that guarantees standards and uniformity. So they will be left probably to those adults handling of the market.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen that in CBD, where the so-called black market in CBD is less about illicit, but more about the fact that you just never knew what you were getting because it wasn't being tested, it wasn't being labeled, there wasn't consistency in product as far as dosage or anything like that. And then on top of that, what we were seeing, particularly in Europe, was they were making all kinds of medicinal claims without any sort of there were no trials, there's no evidence-based documentation to support those claims. They were just claims. So the EU came down heavy, not because it was a black market product, just they didn't know what was in those packages, basically. And when we tested them, we found out that it wasn't CBD. Right. So
yeah, well, standards will kill naturally the black market.
Yeah.
The standard demands and the regulations will kill the black market. Even not from an offensive, aggressive way to try to control them, but by just putting standards so that you consumer feel comfortable in what you're taking. Yes.
So you've built the facility, you're starting to ship. So what's your next challenge?
My next challenge, yes, expansion of expansion of awareness. We need to know. First, let's put it. Perhaps it's too complicated a word that I use. People need to know that we exist, and we need to know where those people are. So we have been hindered a lot with our commercial activity due to COVID. We couldn't travel to anywhere. It's different if you have what I said at the beginning. If the market is set, if there are no gaps, it's easy to have a call like we are doing now and talk about your next shipment or your next PO. But if you are trying to build a market, understand how you operate, what do you want to do? If you want to co-develop a product with me, I need to sit with you on the same table. I need to understand your market. I need to be present there. So our next step is now with COVID getting a little bit easier so that we can travel, be more present, not even fairs, nothing was happening. Now, today, we have a fair in Germany, I think, happening yesterday and today, which our global business developer is present. We have to understand the dynamic. So this is the next step. So expanding that's why I said expanding awareness, being there, understanding what is happening, and having our company being known in the different markets that we want to operate. Everything that we did now with a little bit of desktop research, desktop prospection of clients, calling all the clients, where do you buy? Let me substitute your product. But I want to go beyond. I don't want to be the substitution of what you use. I want to substitute the concept of the kind of product that you use for a more complex, but that needs a lot of personal contact, technical visits. People have to visit our facility to believe that it's there because they, oh yeah, Colombia, okay. Let me see what you have. So, and we couldn't bring a client into our facility. Right. And lately, we had some clients coming in and suddenly they say, wow, what do you have here?
It's
I
real.
wouldn't believe you find something like that in Colombia. So this aha effect, Germans have that, aha, yeah, well, you got that. That's what we need to do because we need to get people aware that we exist, that we are doing our part of the chain, of the value chain in a very professional and sustainable way. So how do we bring that to the world? Of course, conversations with you like that and other interviews help, but we are human beings. We need the social contact. We need to understand. We need to exchange ideas. We need to see. We need to touch. We need to see that things are happening. So that's our next step.
And are you finding sufficient human resources to support these types of activities? I mean, because this is still relatively new. So, can you find the talent to, do this?
It's a good question. And we had this discussion, I think, last week. What is the talent that we're looking at? We believe that teaching about cannabis and teaching about the attributes is easier than when you have a person that has a mindset of understanding what do I want to do with my business. So when we looked for talent, we looked very similar to what we did when we chose the board. What is the pattern of my commercial or business development person? What is the profile? Where does he have to work? What is similar? And the main industry is the ingredient industry, the food ingredient industry. We found our business development gentleman he's a food engineer. He worked very strong with, flavors and aromas for food ingredients. And people ask, well, why do you hire this kind of people? Because their mindset is not selling a product. They sell a solution. They go in there and say, look, I will have here Patrick, which is my client, and he's thinking about what is the taste of chocolate, what is that flavor? So I have to develop something that Patrick and this community accept. So where are they going? What do we want? And I come then to my B2B and say, look, I have the right product for you. Let's develop something for the community that wants to buy that. So flavors and fragrances is very much consumer-centric trends, but business development oriented.
But it also speaks to what you talked about earlier is once you find out what I want, then you need consistency. right? Because if the next product you send me and you're like, oh, this is the stuff you like, and if it's different, I'm not going to be happy. So, that goes back to consistency, right? Making sure that you're able to deliver, the same thing that you delivered last time that I liked.
Exactly. But you're correct. So we have to be consumer centric, but we have to be providing the solution and a sustainable solution, not a one-time shot. You're correct.
But I think that's why the food people understand that, right? Because they understand that, with the food product, if I like it, I want it to taste the same again, right? I don't want to, I don't want to be surprised about the product that, is supposedly my favorite.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's part of the mentality that, again, that you recognized is, they understand the consistency is part of the experience.
Exactly. Very, yeah. You were talking, I remember Coke. Huh? Remember Cristo, whatever, classic Coke, the other Coke? Don't change my Coke. Yeah.
Well, when they did the new Coke, oh my God, what a huge marketing disaster that was. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. This was a case where Pepsi grew like really high because Coke did a mistake.
Yeah, it was a huge mistake.
Yeah, this consistency, this knowing that I cannot surprise my customer. I can surprise with a new product, but not on the traditional product that he's used to. I have to bring him to a new use. And I have to find solutions. So coming to your original question, yes, this talent I think is available. And then we teach them the specificity of cannabis. But his mindset, the way he looks at the market, that's probably what, this is the kind of talent I use. So thinking while I'm talking here, I don't want a pure traditional cannabis expert because he's too much driven into the product and not so much on the solution and on the user of it. So I want to have people that think about, I deal with someone that develops a product for someone else, so a solution provider, an enabler. That's the way I want my people to think when they are approaching. I'm selling a solution. The product comes as the consequence.
Well, and then branding comes again from, that consistency, just to because we want to make sure that, what you supplied me last time and what you supplied me today are the same product, right? So that, I don't want to be surprised that it's better, but I surely don't want to be surprised that it's worse, right? Just give me what I expect and I'm going to be a happy customer, branding is about being consistent.
Yeah, what we want to do is, of course, with the limitations that the market imposes, but we want to go a little bit more, you as a consumer should be, have an ease of mind because there is PharmaCielo inside. So a little bit like the Intel inside, I'm buying, I know what I'm buying, I know there is security, uniformity, everything is inside when you see PharmaCielo as the producer of the final formulation, not the final product. You won't have a PharmaCielo brand, but you will have PharmaCielo inside the product that you probably are buying.
And based on the name of the company, does that mean that you will primarily focus on medicinal products?
No.
Okay.
No, we will focus we have set us, we are not focusing on the adult market.
Okay.
We are focusing on wellness, health, and pharmaceutical. Okay. So it depends how you define medicinal. If you call wellness and health medicinal, then yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily, it kind of depends on where you are, because here, in Europe, pharmacy is typically drugs, it's a very limited application, which is
we are towards the foods industry, for example, we would consider it is anxiety management, like the herbal extracts or the nutraceuticals, this functional food, this kind of approach. That's the limit probably where we will go with our products.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference obviously between medicinal and wellness is whether there's a prescription needed.
Yeah.
You can have wellness products that will benefit you, but they don't typically require a prescription. So that's a different type of product, stuff like that. Well, sir, I very much appreciate your time today and learning more about your company. And hopefully we will have conversations again in the future. We will make sure that we add the link to the website, and if you have any future press releases or anything, please feel free to send them our way, and we're happy to share them.
And hopefully we can be in contact. It was very kind of you to having me here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.